storytelling night. I'm so honored that we are to share our stories of refugees together. I feel deeply I will relate to you as much as you will relate to me. At the end of the day, I'm a Palestinian refugee myself. Although I didn't go through what my parents suffered in 1948 when they had to flee their own country, land and home to seek refuge in Lebanon due to the bloody massacres carried out by the Zionist armed militia, for example the Haganah, I inherited the refugee status, which is not an easy way to carry on your shoulders. A status that, no matter what you do, would keep you locked in a stereotyped box. Having said that, I had to confess that I consider myself one of the extremely lucky refugees. First, I was born in Abu Dhabi, where I spent most of my childhood, a place where you have, as every other expat, a residency visa, so you don't feel different. Actually, I should also give credit to the late ruler of UAE, Sheikh Zayed bin Sultan, who was so supportive to the Palestinian cause to the extent that he would exempt us from any regulations that would be applied to other expats. My parents were able to provide me with a very good education in the UAE and later in Lebanon. Through those unique circumstances, I was very fortunate. I was able to overcome the restrictions other Palestinian refugees were subject to in Lebanon when it comes to education, medication, or employment. This, however, didn't spare me from the racial discrimination and harassment, even from those close to me. But that made me stronger and more determined to show the whole world that despite the fact that life can be very harsh on us, ultimately it's us who decide which road we are to walk on, the road of success or that of failure. I guess you should know by now which road I chose. I have always been very ambitious to succeed and prove myself. I pushed myself hard, often working 3 jobs at a time in order to learn more and more about my trade. Starting in Abu Dhabi, working as a TV presenter, radio host, and a newspaper journalist. And then in London, working as a TV presenter and doing voiceovers for documentaries, whilst at the same time studying for my master's degree in global politics. After that, I returned to Dubai, where I worked in Al Arabiya and interviewed high-profile guests. To cite just a few examples of many, the former UK Prime Minister Tony Blair, Bill Gates, President Mahmoud Abbas, and the former Saudi Foreign Minister Adel Jubeir. In 2015, while on my show with the increasing flux of refugees into Europe from Syria, sparking one of the worst humanitarian crises in recorded history, I made sure that we covered this tragedy on a daily basis in a special bulletin, Al-Khamisa. We started by covering the refugee crisis. Then we personalized the storyline, changing mere numbers into names. Then we tried to make the bulletin a platform by which to connect the refugee to bodies that would be able to help them out with their particular needs. I'm proud to say we had numerous success stories. Let me tell you about one of them. Ali, an 11-year-old Syrian refugee in Jordan who had to drop his studies to work to support his family. We interviewed him, and at the same time, we had one of the UNICEF officials with us. On air, the official pledged to help Ali. Now he's in the USA with his family continuing his education. I wanted to truly feel, touch the reality of the day-to-day life of these refugees and their suffering. So I went to Maghreb in Yemen in person with Al Arabiya and covered the stories of the displaced Yemenis. In the same way, I also visited 2 Syrian refugee camps in Jordan. That was my main job. However, on the side, I also worked as a part-time professor in Mohammed bin Rashid School for Communication at the American University in Dubai. I did that for 3 main reasons. Firstly, it would enhance my career path. Secondly, I enjoyed sharing my knowledge and experience with the students. And last but not least, it was great to be able to pay something back to the country which had opened its arms to me, and I was honored to be part of Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid's initiatives and vision, as I consider him to be a living legend. In addition, I also train officials and business leaders on how to deal with presenting themselves on camera and to get their message across in a professional manner, which I learned through my own career achievements. On personal level, I was also blessed to marry a handsome Palestinian British gentleman, Mahmoud, who gave me 2 beautiful kids, Ryan and Jenna, and a British passport, that helped me break all the borders that were built around the Palestinian travel document from Lebanon that I was holding. This travel document was not only unrecognized by most of the Western countries, but also unwelcomed in Arab countries. I was fighting a small battle that is just a small example of a bigger one fought by the Palestinian people who have been under military occupation by Zionists for over 70 years now. Although the confrontation began hundreds of years ago. A confrontation that is based on negation, as our people have been subjected to constant campaigns of complete denial of our basic human rights and existence. I'm glad that I'm sharing my story with you at this particular moment of the Palestinian struggle, the time in which our story was finally presented at its best. It's the time when I feel the sense of empowerment by a story coming from all Palestinians, reflecting a sense of unity, dignity, defiance, and resilience, and above all, readiness to actually stand up everywhere. Why we succeeded this time? I can't but give credit to the new generation. It is because of the Palestinian youth we were able to properly use technology in sending the message. But still, how were they able to convey the message that we, or the old generation, couldn't? From my point of view, this is due to many reasons, and these are lessons that are to be learned by all of us. One, they exposed reality. One example which went viral on social media is Yaqub, please watch it. Like any other settler, he can steal a Palestinian house while the owner cannot live in it. So the more you reflect reality, the closer you are to the heart and mind of the people. Two, they were fully aware of the right terminologies to be used and that would reflect again reality. We see in one of the interviews, Mohammed al-Kurd and also the Palestinian ambassador in the UK refusing to describe the situation in Sheikh Jarrah as an eviction, as it implies the presence of a landlord, which is not the case. Three, they based their argument on facts and international law. Again, in an interview, Mohammed al-Kurd describing the decision of the Israeli court as illegal, as the Israeli occupation has no legitimate jurisdiction over the eastern part of occupied Jerusalem under international law. Four, they have reshaped the narrative which up until the Sheikh Jarrah calamity or Nakba had always been expressed in a plaintive, mournful voice. This has now been replaced by a more defiant and resilient tone, expressed in what I term as a youth language. This can best be demonstrated by the smiles on the faces of the Palestinian youth as they were being aggressively assaulted whilst being arrested by the Israeli occupying forces. These smiles speak louder than any words could to express the defiance, strength, optimism, and hope for a brighter future. I'm happy to conclude by showing these smiles, the only weapon that the Palestinians employ, and I hope you find your own smile to help you fight your own causes and give you strength. Let us always think of our refugee status as an engine that drives us forward and gives us strength to overcome all the obstacles that come into our path. Wishing you the best of luck in your own struggle.